This is the Let's Go Win podcast with your host, J.M. Ryerson.
What is happening, you guys? Welcome back to the Let's Go Win podcast. I have on today, this gentleman brings a lot to the table. He's got a lot of stuff you're going to want to check out. Part CEO, part personal development wonk, and part biohacker info geek. Thom King is a self-confessed serial entrepreneur that follows a "you aren't doing well unless you're also doing some good" line of thinking. King's company has been built around the simple principle of do the right thing. In 1999, Thom's personal passion for food and his concern over the explosion of metabolic disease led him to found Stevia brands, now known as Icon Foods, with a mission to stem the tide of diabesity by providing consumers healthy alternatives to sugar. Thom's latest project is a line of ketogenic condiments intended to help more people successfully adopt a healthier lifestyle. And I received some of those, brother. Thank you so much. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, JM. I totally appreciate it. And thanks for that introduction. That was, that doesn't, I guess that would be me, but it's hugely flattering.
You've been busy, man. I mean, look, it sounds like you followed your passion, but let's just get right into why food, man. Do you have a background in food? Do you just enjoy food? How did you decide, like, all right, let's start at Stevia, and now you've made it into something even greater, but how did you start into that industry?
I would say it wasn't as much of a passion about food as it was a passion about science and just being curious about biology. I would say that is where my deepest interests lie. And the way that I stumbled upon, Stevia it was just interesting. I was living in Phoenix, Arizona at the time, and I ran into a gentleman whose name was Jim May, who'd just come back from Paraguay. And he had like a bunch of different herbs that he brought. And, he opened one of the jars and he's like, "Hey, you should try this." And so I dipped my finger into it and it was like this green paste. And when I tasted it, it was about 25 times sweeter than sugar. And at that point in time, I didn't realize that there were any kind of compounds in nature that were sweet except for sugar. So I was kind of brainwashed from that perspective. But I tasted it and I was like, whoa, yeah, what is this? Some sort of a sugar leaf or something? And he said, no, it's stevia, doesn't have any calories, doesn't have any carbs. And that was when basically I took the red pill. And I was like, whoa, how is this happening in nature? What are these sweet constituents in that leaves? How do we get them out? And how do we, make a sweetener, that can replace aspartame or sucralose or, any of the chemical-based sweeteners that are out there? And that was the beginning of my journey.
So, that starts you into, okay, this science, this is interesting, that something natural that's not providing to, as you call it, diabesity, which is a huge epidemic in our country today and around the world.
Yeah.
So you're like, all right, this is a healthy alternative to typical sugar. And then it just kept going from there. Is that the idea?
Yeah, it kept going from there. So the first thing that I did was I didn't have a really vast chemistry background. So I hired chemists. I'm like, hey, can you guys take a look at this leaf? And what are these sweet constituents that are in this leaf? How do we get them out using like hot water and using some sort of a process that doesn't involve chemicals like, petroleum and stuff. And it was a process over 4 or 5 years, and finally found a chemist that was able to come up with a process that was able to get the sweet parts of that leaf out, and then found a company that would be able to do that extraction at scale. And that's kind of how we got started. And that was our first sweetener, which was stevia. A stevia extract was about 250 times sweeter than sugar. And at that point, that's when innovation came in. Like, okay, so how do we take something that's 250 times sweeter than sugar, and how do we make it usable for consumers? Because 1/8 of a teaspoon of stevia extract is as sweet as 1 cup of sugar. So if you're making some sort of a a sweet, dessert or some dish like that, your margin for error is pretty tight. So that's when we started innovating and bringing in other compounds that we started discovering.
So Mother Nature wins again is what I hear. I mean, it's like that much sweeter. That's crazy.
It is crazy. And I mean, and since then, I mean, I've even found compounds in nature that are even sweeter than that. Like there's one called Thaumatin that's pretty rare that comes from West Africa that is 3,000 times sweeter than sugar. So it's an interesting field.
It sounds like have you traveled the world to go find this stuff? Does it get sent to you, brother? I mean, who doesn't want to go check this out in Africa? Hey, I got a really sweet plant. Let me go.
Well, the bottleneck with the Thaumatin is that it's grown in mostly conflict areas. And so I try to stay out of those conflict areas.
Well, we need you around, brother, because we got to tackle some big topics. So let's talk about this. Diabetes, obesity, you put them together, you have diabesity. Why is it so important to you that we eradicate or certainly slow this? Again, whatever you want to call it right now, you hesitate to say pandemic or epidemic or something, because we're already dealing with enough demics right now.
Yeah, definitely.
But how the hell do we slow this sucker down, man?
We stop eating sugar, and it's just that simple. So, I mean, when you look at metabolic disease, and metabolic disease just happens to be the number one underlying condition for mortality for COVID. So when you look at all the people that are dying from it, by and large, that group has some sort of metabolic disease, like diabetes or insulin resistance or something like that. So, I mean, those things go hand in hand. And I think that, quality of life, I mean, when you see somebody, I mean, I see a lot of people at trade shows, or used to, and hopefully will again, but I would see people at trade shows, that are carrying 200 and 300 pounds of extra weight. And, while they struggle, just to get up every day, I mean, that's something that could be changed. And it can be changed by, one step at a time, by showing people, here's something, that will keep you from using as much sugar. And here's a lifestyle change that's not so hard to adopt, that will help you lose weight, balance your blood sugar levels. So it's mostly seeing a quality of life, and that's on an individual level. So that's like the micro level. But on the macro level, it's like you can see what, COVID-19 has done to our economy and the world economy. Like, it's just been a huge destroyer. But when you look at diabetes, type 2 diabetes and metabolic disease, those are just as impactful on our healthcare system. So it's like, when you look at it on a micro level, it's the individual is suffering. When you look at it on a macro level, that's where you see, the community suffering. So I think that, I feel like it's my purpose to at least help, and bring options to the market.
Which you're certainly doing, and we're going to get into that. But I got to ask before we do, where did this start, man? Because it was at the 60s, 70s, 80s that all of a sudden we have sugars in everything. Is it the fast food idea? Is it literally these marketing and food companies that have just put so much, whether it's preservatives or sugar, or I don't know, because I'm not in that world. But where did this start? Because, man, it is a challenge, not only in the US, but really in most of Western culture. Where did it all come from, man?
I think it's multifaceted, but I think that when you look at, because I wouldn't look at the food industry as a whole and say, hey, all of these companies that are making processed food are bad. I mean, these companies are looking to, maximize bottom line gains, meaning profits for the company. And when you look at sugar, as a whole, sugar is cheap. I mean, you can buy sugar for 15 cents a pound. And when you look at, okay, so sugar compared to, like, say, tomatoes or, any other compound that you would using. I mean, I'm just using a condiment as an example because, I know the formulas for those. And so when you look at like a conventional ketchup or something like that, I mean, it's mostly sugar, it's mostly salt, vinegar, some tomatoes. but that's not the original recipe, right? But if you're able to take something that's 15 cents a pound, right, and replace an ingredient that's like $4 a pound, you're going to look at a huge difference in your bottom line. And so that's, I think, part of the reason why a lot of food manufacturers use sugar, because it is such a cheap filler that they can put in. I think that's part of it. And then I also think that it's also the education of the public. And so in the 70s, I would say late 60s, early 70s, when I was a kid in grade school, I mean, the one thing that was pushed is how bad fat is for you. Don't eat fat. Sugar's good for you. Sugar's going to give you energy. Here, eat some sugar, but stay away from fat. And I think flash forward to like 2017 when keto started becoming a thing. It's like, well, you know what? Sugar is horrible for you. It triggers the same pleasure zones in your brain as cocaine. So it has those addictive properties. And if people are like, that's nonsense, no, it doesn't do that. It's like, really? Okay, give your kids some sugar. Give your kids some sugar and then see what happens, and see how they ask for it. Like, come on, just give me another pop. All I want to do is another pop. Can I have a, ice cream? So when you look at the addictive properties, I mean, there's that component to it. So I think that we're a society that is addicted to sugar, and breaking that addiction and that dependency, I think, is critical to our health as a community.
Well, let's get into ketogenic diet, ketosis. I mean, Tell me, so we can define it, because I think, yes, it's a buzzword. It's certainly something that's out there, but I don't know if the educational piece is quite there yet. So let's start there, and then you can tell me your journey into this world.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's a lot of opinions out there, right? I mean, it's particularly when you are looking at social media, like a lot of people have their interpretation and their definition of what keto is. Like, there's different types of keto. Like now there's dirty keto, and there's like keto carnivore, where you just eat meat. But I mean, the original platform, or the original, I would say, theory behind a ketogenic diet is making sure that your diet is 70% fat. And that fat doesn't need to come from butter and cheese and ribeyes and bacon. Like, there's a lot of things that have fat, like avocados and nuts. And those are the types of fats that you want to seek out. You want to seek out good, clean fats. So the diet, 70% fat, 20% protein, and 10% carbs. And that 10% carbs, those are the things that I think you need to watch the most, like what carbs you're taking in. Like, bread is a carb, but it's high glycemic, meaning that it converts to glucose quickly and can create an insulin spike. So you want to take in carbs that are slow burning, like cruciferous vegetables, like broccoli, cauliflower, lettuces, like any vegetable that grows above the ground. I mean, those basically are going to fall into a keto safe category. And that's it. 70% fat, 20% protein, 10% carbs. And if you follow that, you will go into a state of ketosis. And so that's where the big question is. Well, what is ketosis? It's where your body doesn't have the carbs or the glucose, and it starts using fats. It starts burning fats. So your liver starts converting fats over to ketones, and ketones are a source of energy that your brain can use to function, as well as your body. And the only way that I can describe when you move from burning glucose over to burning fat when you're in keto is like somebody turning the lights on in a room. So you feel like the lights are on, you feel like you're seeing and experiencing things, but when you're in keto and your body starts burning clean fats like that, boom, lights are on, your energy level changes, and it's pretty amazing.
So you can actually feel it yourself, is what I'm hearing. You're not using the strips to say, yeah, man, I'm in a state of ketosis, I know this is happening. You're like, you can feel it physically.
Oh, I've been doing it for a while, so I can usually guess what, how deep of keto I'm in without using strips or taking blood. Like I can get it pretty close. And it usually depends on like the energy level that I feel. I also sort of a taste that I get in my mouth, because ketones, when you're exhaling, it's sort of sweet. And so I know my body well enough that it's like, okay, so yeah, I'm in keto right now. But I mean, when you're starting out, like if you're just starting out and you want to do data collection, because honestly, if you're looking to complete some sort of a goal, let's say you're trying to lose 50 pounds, you're not going to get there without a roadmap. You're not going to get there without doing some sort of data collection to see where you've been and where you need to go. So, I would say the test strips are a little accurate. I'd say a blood glucose monitor that also checks for ketones is probably the best. And should you do it every day? Not necessarily. Maybe once a week, until you can understand what your body feels like when it's in keto.
So I have several questions because I geek out on this stuff. I love it. So this will
Good.
be fun.
We both do.
What ultimately motivated you to go keto? What was the driving force to say, you know what, man, this just sounds so appealing? Was there a overarching goal, or how did you fall into it?
Well, I would say that I hit a pivotal moment. And so I was in Las Vegas. It was probably 6 years ago. I was in Las Vegas, went out to dinner, with with one of our suppliers, which means they're buying. And if they're buying, I'm eating. And so got a ribeye, baked potato, just like really just, got their money's worth. And I got back to my room at the Luxor, and that was just the pivotal moment. So I mean, I'm in this room, and it basically smelled like stale liquor, broken dreams, and regret. And I was like, okay, so what am I doing here? And at that point, I was like, I'm working in an industry where we supply ingredients to companies that support keto, low carb, paleo. And it's like, I'm eating pizza and drinking wine and beer, and I'm carrying about 35 pounds of extra weight and have high blood pressure and all of this. And it's like, wow, you're an imposter, and I think that the pain of that imposter syndrome exceeded the pleasure that I was deriving from that lifestyle. And at that point, I mean, I've been a person who's used journaling, for all the way back to the early 90s. Like, this is sort of the way that I set the stage for my day. And so I just started journaling about it. Like, okay, so what am I going to do to make a lifestyle change? What are the steps that I'm going to take? Putting in data collection. And after a year, I basically had a book. And at that point, I just took it to a publisher. I'm like, do you think there's anything we can do with this? That was my journey. But I would say that the real thing is I dabbled in keto, meaning I used Atkins occasionally. Like, I'd start getting fat, and it's like, okay, I need to lose, that's 20 pounds. So I'd go on Atkins for a couple months, lose the weight. Then I would be off Atkins. Then I'd gain 25 pounds. And then, so it was this cycle, this yo-yo cycle. And at that point, even when I started keto, I was like, hey, I'm going to do keto 5 days a week. But on the weekend, I'm going to blow it out. And I would do that. And then I would feel great 4 days out of the week. 3 days out of the week, I'm recovering from being a turd. And so it's like, at that point, I was like, wow, this can't be a diet. This has to be a lifestyle change.
I'm laughing because so many, the yo-yo is I mean, that is the best way to put that, because so often it's so true. You feel amazing 5 days a week, and then I'm going to go reward myself and feel like shit for 2 days. Yep. Like, why? It doesn't make sense. So my follow-up question is, do you intermittent fast in order to get into ketosis? Is that a part of your lifestyle?
It is a part of my lifestyle, and I wouldn't say that I do it specifically to get myself deeper into keto. I mean, it definitely helps. Like, if you're doing keto, using intermittent fasting along with it will help you along the way, depending on what your goals are. Like, intermittent fasting for me isn't a weight loss modality. Intermittent fasting is a longevity modality. So what happens when you know, use intermittent fasting is your body can go into a state of autophagy. And autophagy is where you get, you know, all these cells that are no longer functioning at 100%, they start to die off, because that's when your body is in like sort of that starvation mode. And it's like, look, we need to get rid of these cells that aren't doing us any good. And that is what I use intermittent fasting for. And then also like Prolon. So Prolon is a fast mimicking diet that you just do for 5 days, and that will throw you into autophagy. But yeah, I mean, using the combination, excellent. But really using that combination to put yourself into autophagy, even better.
So yeah, and I love the autophagy because it took me a long time to know how to say that word properly. But talk to me about Prolong, because I just did a 3-day fast, and
Nice.
so basically a water fast.
Yeah.
And my whole goal was to get into autophagy. But what is Prolong? Tell me just a little bit more about that, because I don't know. You said 5 days. Is that a water fast? Is it something a little more involved?
Yeah, it's a little more involved. And so Dr. Walter Longo wrote a book called The Fast Mimicking Diet. And it's an interesting book, you know, and it kind of goes against a little bit of what I believed, you know, in keto and what keto could do in intermittent fasting. But he has like meal packets. It's mostly soups that are super high in fiber. So you're eating some fats, and you know, you're getting some fibers and stuff like that. And a bar, like it's not super fun, and the food's not super tasty, but meaning, yeah, you're eating still, but because of the stuff that you're eating, it's mimicking a fast, and therefore your body goes into into autophagy. You also lose a lot of weight and feel pretty good, and there is no better condiment than starvation.
Well, and this is the part that I think people miss, because even my wife is looking at me like I'm nuts. Like, what are you doing not eating food for 3 days? You're going to die. I'm like, A, I'm not going to die. B, I feel great.
Yeah.
My mind is, especially day 2, I will say, my mind felt great. My energy was high. I had a great workout.
Yeah.
But what is the brain? Why is it so alert? Why is it so alive? Can you speak to the science behind that? Because that is fascinating to me. Yes, there's some hunger pains, and like 3 o'clock the first day is how I look at it. But by day 2, man, I am on fire.
Yeah.
Day 3, I'm feeling pretty good. Starting to slow down maybe a little bit. But what is it about the brain? What's happening there?
That's a really good question. So your body is using up glucose. And so you're using up your glucose, you have no glucose left, and now your body is starting to function on fats, meaning it's taking those fat stores. So when you think about your everyday diet, you know, like if you eat a piece of fruit or let's go to fruit. So if you eat fruit's high in fructose. And so a lot of people will be like, oh, well, fruit gives you energy. Fruit does not give you energy. What it does is you get fibers from it. You're going to get minerals. You're going to get vitamins, and you're going to get fructose. And fructose is metabolized by your liver, but it's not metabolized to be used as energy. It's metabolized to automatically turn into fat or lipids. So think about a bear. When you think about bears and they're hibernating, about September, you know, this is when they're going out after the fruit. And that's the fruit that's fallen on the ground and is starting to rot. And that attracts bears like crazy. And the bears are eating that fruit because that's when it's its highest peak of fructose. And so when they eat it, they're not using it for energy right then. But what is happening is they're metabolizing it in their liver, immediately turning it to fat, and they're getting all of this fat accumulation on their bodies. So when you're fasting, right, now you've burned through all the glucose. And incidentally, the human body only needs 4 teaspoons of glucose to survive. So it's not necessary to drink, you know, like a soda that's got 25 grams of sugar. It's not necessary. You need those 4 teaspoons. So your body's burned through the glucose. Your body is burned up, you know, some of the carbs and stuff that have been around, and the sugars that are there in your muscles, in glycogens. But now what it's doing is taking fat, and it's taking that fat and metabolizing it into your liver and turning it into ketones. And that's what you're experiencing. Your brain running on glucose versus your brain running on ketones.
This is fascinating. I'm literally going to walk around seeing people thinking you should only have 4 teaspoons of sugar or glucose, and you're like chock full of this stuff.
Isn't
All
that
right,
crazy?
let's talk about you a little bit. You talked about journaling as being a part of your lifestyle change. And
Yeah.
my audience, for full disclosure, they hear me talk about this stuff frequently, but you also talk about mindfulness. You talk about meditation. Tell me your process, brother, because again, I love that you called it a lifestyle change. It's not like a task. It's just what you do. Why is that so important to your lifestyle and what you've created?
I think it creates sanity. You know, it creates sanity in an insane world. So, I mean, every single day, like I have a routine that's down, and I just need that. You know, I need it to tame the monkey brain, and I need it to sort of set the stage for my day. Like if you want your day to be a masterpiece, you know, that the morning is the best time to start creating it. And so the first thing that I do when I get up in the morning, coffee, crack open the journal. Actually not in that order. The first thing I do in the morning is crack open the Daily Stoic. And so stoicism is like one of these things that has altered the course of my life. So Ryan Holiday wrote a book called The Daily Stoic, and that is, I'm through my 3rd copy of it now, because of course I take notes, which I like to call it annotations, but most people are like, hey, you ruined that book. And I'm like, oh no, those are annotations. They're super important. So I start off reading a passage out of it, and that gives me the foundation of the questions that I'm going to ask myself while I'm journaling. Because I also get asked that, like, well, I'm sitting in front of a blank page. How the hell do I fill this blank page up? Ask yourself some questions like, what am I grateful for? What did I do yesterday that was right? What did I do yesterday that, that I could do better? You know, who do I need to forgive? You know, how do I need to forgive myself? I mean, you start asking yourself those questions and you'll fill a book. I mean, that's where your answers come from. And it really helps you understand the things that you do control and allows you to take control of those things. And it also helps you understand the things you don't control, like time, other people, their opinions, their actions, and the things you do control are, your habits, your thoughts, and stuff like that. But once you're able to get that down on paper and look at it visually, now you've set your course.
Guys, I love this because so often I hear that. Well, what do I write about? What you just write, but you're using the Daily Stoic. That's really interesting because it's allowing and prompting some thought, perhaps. Let me ask you, what type of meditation do you do? It's a daily practice, I'm imagining, for you? Is it guided? Are you just, what's your practice for meditation?
That's a good question. I mean, it varies. Like sometimes I'll do a guided meditation. I have a mindful app on my phone that I use. It works really well for me. Sometimes I don't use a guided meditation. Sometimes I'll just use a meditation of stillness, where I'm practicing stillness, where your mind starts to wander and you just bring it back on the paper, and to me, that's an exercise. So the meditation really becomes an exercise of clearing your mind of thoughts, allowing the thought to come through and then just letting it cycle out and then letting it move and then keeping yourself in that space of stillness.
You guys, I mean, he's created some pretty cool stuff, and I want to get to these products. So the Guy Gone Keto condiments, which by the way are freaking awesome. My youngest boy absolutely is obsessed with them. Why are they so unique and different? And why would somebody go out and say, you know what, I could buy, I don't know, Heinz ketchup. Why do I buy Guy Gone Keto? What is the difference? What am I getting in this brand?
Yeah, I get that a lot. And why would somebody pay $9 for a bottle of ketchup when they could buy Heinz for $1.99? So it really is just going to be all about the ingredients. Like we don't use any sugar. We use, really good quality Ingredients. We use allulose, which is a rare sugar. That I think the allulose helps a lot, because if you're using it for barbecuing, it caramelizes and gives you a nice crispy coat over whatever you're barbecuing. And, I also put fat in them, and how many condiments do you find that actually have fat? So we used MCT oil in all of them, just to get the macronutrients closer to what works with keto. And what's interesting is I didn't make those condiments to sell. So those condiments were sort of something that I made selfishly, because when I started down keto, I'm like, oh, wait, I can't have teriyaki, or I can't have, Thai sweet chili sauce, and I can't have ketchup or barbecue sauce, because like ketchup has more sugar than ice cream. And it's nuts. And like, if you put barbecue sauce basically per ounce, barbecue sauce has more sugar than a Snickers bar. So when you start looking at all of the added sugar that's in the condiments, I'm like, I can't have any condiments. And so what am I just going to have salt and pepper on everything? And I mean, I'm a food scientist, so I'm like, well, I'll just make these myself. So I knocked out the recipes and started using them. And then I shared them with friends, and they're like, hey, do you have any more of this? This is really good. You should probably sell these. And which was clearly obvious to me, but sometimes you don't see the obvious. So we bottled them up and put them on Amazon and Shopify, and it just blew up. Like, everybody had great things to say about them, and they also had a lot of maybe shitty things to say about them. But that was great, because it helped us actually reformulate them so they were better. Like, some people were like, yeah, this isn't very good. I think this is what needs to be changed. And so I love that. I love anytime somebody tells me, yeah, they're great, they're amazing, the first thing that pops into my mind is, well, so what can I do better? Like, what do I need to do? So yeah, it's been a journey. It's been my passion project.
Well, you said in the intro, a part personal development wonk, which great word, by the way. You don't hear that often, but I mean, you obviously receive feedback well. And for any scientist, you need to have that feedback. You can't nail it 100% right out of the gate, right? I mean, I imagine you're in the labs at Icon, and you guys are constantly trying to make it that much better, that much, I don't know, healthier. You're always probably trying to make it better. So that feedback's got to be invaluable.
It is. And I mean, and I always ask for it. And I know that people, and I mean, this is something that, I mean, I think, people should incorporate into their entire lives, not just like if you're a food developer or a scientist or something, but that wanting to have people speak their truth to you about things that you're not doing what they believe is up to a good standard, and meaning telling you what you can do better. Because like, when people tell you, oh, that's amazing, that's really great, that's cool to hear. Your ego loves that. And the ego is your ultimate enemy. I just want to know, like, okay, that's great, I get that, and I love the fact that people enjoy, the things that I've been making, but I want to know what it is that I can do better. But if you bring that into your entire life, where it's like you strip your ego out of it, like, how do I become, a better partner? How do I become a better father? How do I become a better friend? How do I become a better sibling? You start looking at those questions and just asking them. And those are excellent ways to develop a path to, just becoming a better person in general.
Well, and that's what I heard you in that Las Vegas hotel room. You got that feedback from the mirror and said, shit, man, I got to do better. And you took it and you did change. So talk to me about Gaigon Keto Project, about giving back to the community. What is that all about, brother? Because obviously you're trying to really help us, again, tame this beast of diabesity. But, is that the ultimate give back, or is there something more that you're doing that I'm not aware of, that I don't have in front of me?
Well, I mean, so keto is a well-proven modality for treating epilepsy.
Hmm.
And so for us, for families who have children that their kids suffer from epilepsy, or even adults that are suffering from epilepsy that are using keto to be able to reduce the amount of seizures they have, our product is free. It just email us, DM us, whatever, and we will send you out product. Like, we really believe the keto is so useful for, for neurodegenerative diseases and, and epilepsy. So we are 100% on board. Childhood obesity or childhood diabesity, on board with that as well. So, I mean, we support the community in that way. We're also working continually on creating new products that will continue, to help people fight that. And then we have some other stuff that's secret I can't talk about.
We'll find out eventually. I know we will. So what's kind of next? What's going on with, Guy Gone Keto? What's your future plans, brother? I mean, maybe you can give us a snippet of what these secrets they have coming up in the future. Because again, guys, if you haven't tried the products, if you haven't heard of it, go to Amazon, go to his website. It's badass. But what is next? What can we expect to see from Guy Gone Keto?
I would expect to see something from Guy Gone Keto about about showing oneself grace, because there's gonna be a lot more things coming out, because honestly, over COVID and these lockdown periods and stuff that everybody's been struggling with, I struggled too. I wasn't keto the entire time. I put on 20 pounds of weight. I wasn't hitting the gym as much, and now that's something that I'm working on. So I think that what came up for me is that understanding, and really being transparent in blog posts and social media about my journey and about being compassionate of other people's journey, because there might be somebody out there that wants to lose 100 pounds and they've got food dependencies, which I have, because it's like my relationship with food is complicated. Like, it's like, oh no, this scoop of ice cream, that's not, that's not going to take me out of keto, or whatever the case may be. But, my relationship with food is a very complicated one. And I'm sure most people's relationship with food, since we live in such an abundant environment, is complicated. And I want to be able to reach those people, and I want to be able to send that message of like, look, it's like, I get it. You did keto, you slipped off keto. So did I. Nobody's perfect. Show yourself some grace. Get back in there. Surround yourself with good people that are going to help you take your life to your next level. That's where I'm going.
Wasn't that the difference between it being a diet and a lifestyle, right? Like, look, if it's a lifestyle, you're gonna screw up, right? You're not gonna be perfect. None of it. We're human beings, man.
Yeah, but that's where the deep lessons come. Like, I've never learned more about myself than in the past year and a half. And it's like, yeah, good. Now what do I do with this? And it's my duties to sort of share that.
All right. I'd be remiss if I didn't ask, because again, you're a gentleman that's gone on these amazing, steak dinners. There's got to be some decent wine. Again, I need a little booze in my life, man. Is there a good way to have on the keto side? Is there a decent drinking option for us?
Well, I get asked that a lot. And I love whiskey. I love good bourbon, and I love good red wine. So I do imbibe. And it's something also that I think that I struggle with sometimes, because I know having one is perfect. Having two, not so great. Over two is just going to lead you down maybe a path that you don't want to go. And it's easy to do. It's really easy to do. Are there options? Dry red wine will not kick you far out of keto, but you have to take something into consideration. What the main component in wine and alcohol is ethanol. And so ethanol is metabolized by your liver. And so fats are also metabolized by your liver. And so that your liver is going to take the easiest path to the thing that is metabolized the quickest. And that's going to be the ethanol. So you're not going to be burning fat while you're drinking. All things in moderation. Beer, probably not a great option because it's got a ton of carbs. Anything with sugar in it, like margaritas, mojitos, stuff like that, not good options. But what I can tell you is within the next 3 or 4 months, we're going to have Guygon Keto cocktail mixers. And so you will be able to make a margarita or a mojito or any one of the 7 major cocktails that you like, pina coladas even. So you will be able to do those in a cocktail or mocktail. But it's moderation and being able to exercise moderation.
Makes sense. I don't know if you've tried. Have you gone to the mezcals at all? Because I was a whiskey guy. I've completely gone away from it. I'm a mezcal guy almost a whole 100% now.
I love mezcal. I love a mezcal margarita. Mezcal, yeah, in moderation. Love it. That's finding your moderation though, because that mezcal can have a tendency to get me a little wound up.
Yep. No, you're not alone, my brother. Well, I love what you're doing, Tom. How can they connect with you? Where can our audience connect with you online, learn more about it? I love with the epilepsy. That's just fascinating. And you guys, we all probably know someone that's been touched by this. You heard him. They will literally send it to you. So how can they connect with you online?
Hit us up on guygonketo.com or go to any of the socials like Twitter, Instagram. I think we even have TikTok. So just hit us up, or you can even go on LinkedIn. If you DM us, let us know, what you're going through. Also Amazon, if you're looking for, any of our products, we've got them on Amazon or the Guygon Keto site, and check out a copy of my book. If you want me to autograph it, you can send it to me and I'll sign it. Probably send you some goodies.
Well, I got that package, guys. You want this package, so do not be afraid. Reach out to him. Brother, I appreciate how you show up in the world and what you're doing, man. Your products are awesome. I love that you're the passion you have to help our country and the world really get better. So thank you, man. Thanks for taking the time.
Thanks, JM. I appreciate that. And thank you for having me on your show. I think what you do is super important.
Well, I appreciate it. You guys, I mean it. I have a package. I'd like 7 different sauces. Not one of them wasn't incredible. They're sitting in my fridge. You can come over to my house or you can go buy them yourself. But either way, you should definitely check it out. And you guys, just remember, continue transcending life. Your mindset matters. We'll talk to you next week. Thank you so much for listening. If this content is delivering value to you, please make sure to subscribe, rate, and review us. That helps us build this community, and that is what we are all about. Building this community as big as we can, helping as many people as we can, and deliver as much value as possible. Be sure to head over to letsgowinpodcast.com for information on my coaching courses, and make sure to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn at Let's Go Win 365. Let's go win and transcend in life.
This is the Let's Go Win podcast with your host, J.M. Ryerson.